In college, my friends and I lived off Facebook Marketplace. Of course, we're broke 19, 20-year-olds who are trying to furnish apartments that are way bigger than any apartment we'll ever have because we're living in a super cheap city. But also, we were theater kids. I talk about this all the time. I promise this isn't a theater podcast, but we were always directing shows or acting in shows or producing shows that needed furniture that was nothing like any of us had. We were always searching on Facebook Marketplace for anything to fill our apartments, to fill our stages, just to fill things. And my one friend, Katrina, she found this chair and it was going to be for her apartment room. This is a girl thing, but you know, you have a chair in your room that you put clothes on. That's not the purpose of the chair, but it sits in the corner. And when you don't know what to wear, that's where you stack up the options. One of those chairs, she found this beautiful antique pink and blue, almost like a silk chair, an armchair, upholstered chair. And it was a great price. I think it was like $30 on Facebook Marketplace. It was beautiful, big, super comfortable. She could use it forever. And she was like, hey, it's like 45 minutes away. Will you come and get it with me? And she had a big old car. Her car's name is Bertha. Bertha's still running today. And I was like, absolutely. And so we buckled up. I think we got coffees and we drove. And the lady wanted cash for it. So on our way there, we just stopped. I want to say it was a post office to get cash. They have ATMs. We stopped at this random building. I'm not gonna lie to you all. It was kind of scary. It was kind of scary. It looked like it was evacuated. You had to go through with those metal bars that rotate, almost like you're entering the subway. You had to push through and they kept getting stuck. We went in, we got cash, we left, we showed up to this lady's house and we tried to put the chair into her car. However, one of the back seat chairs in Katie's car would not go down. We didn't think this would be a problem though, because we could put down the middle row and there's still 2 out of 3 of the back seats that you can put stuff on top of. However, this chair would not fit. And this little old lady had carried it out of the house and we had driven 45 minutes here and this chair would not fit. And now I have a smaller car. I still have her Roxy today, a Nissan Kicks. She's smaller. However, I only have 2 rows in my car. I don't have 3. I could put that second row down and the back trunk is just empty. There's nothing obscuring the path. And so Katie and I were like, okay. And so we drove 45 minutes back to our house. We got in my car. The lady just left it out on the curb and then we came back and we got the chair. And it was this whole big ordeal for this tiny little chair. And I was thinking about it when I wrote down, I was like, oh, you can tell this story. It's not in her room anymore. I'm pretty sure. I've been in her apartment this month and I can't visualize that chair. I wonder if she got rid of it. I'll have to ask her. But it's just funny. And now when I go to her apartment, whether or not that pink chair is there, I don't think it is. She has one love seat from a show I directed in college in her living room. She also has a butterfly chair that my old roommate's mom gifted to me. And then I wasn't going to take it when I left college because I was moving across the country. So I gave it to Katie. That's in Katie's living room. It's just funny. We have all of these random things from Facebook Marketplace that are filling our homes. It's kind of silly the way that we look for things to fill up our lives with. And that applies to our quote of the day, which is, Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude. So I want to talk about the way that we fill things. And even though you have a small space, you get to choose what you fill it with. My name is Caroline Mae Woodson. You're listening to I May Be Wrong, and this week that quote is from A.A. Milne, and that's from Winnie the Pooh, if the piglet didn't give it away. And I know Winnie the Pooh is in classical literature. However, I thought that quote aligned with our gratitude concept for the month. So some fun facts on Winnie the Pooh that you may or may not know. Pooh was originally a swan. A swan. Can you imagine the swan? The Pooh part of the name didn't initially belong to the bear. Christopher Robin gave the name Pooh to the swan he used to feed on holiday. Once we transitioned to a bear, had a different name before being called Winnie the Pooh. Christopher Robin's stuffed bear was simply called Edward Bear, which Edward Bear is a distinguished name. It doesn't have the ring that Winnie the Pooh does. But the Winnie part of the name comes from a real female bear, and it comes from a real-life black bear named Winnipeg, Winnie for short, who resided at the London Zoo and was a beloved attraction. And the real bear, Winnie, was a World War I mascot. And she was brought from Canada to England by a Canadian Army officer and named it after his hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba, before being left at the London Zoo for safekeeping when his unit was sent to France. Some more fun facts about the friends of Winnie the Pooh. Owl and Rabbit were not based on toys, while Pooh, Piglet, Eeyore, Tigger, Kanga, and Roo were based off Christopher Robin's actual stuffed animals. Owl and rabbit were invented by Milne to round out the group. And the real Rue is missing. The stuffed toy that is Rue, which inspired the character, was lost in an apple orchard during the 1930s. Aw, Rue, are you okay? Pooh was not drawn based on his own toy. The illustrator, E.H. Shepard, drew the character of Pooh not by looking at Christopher Robin's actual teddy bear, but by using his own son's teddy bear, Growler, as a model, which is kind of sweet. I think it's nice to think about all these little characters are memorializations of all of our childhoods. And then lastly, the books were translated into a Latin bestseller. A Latin translation of the book, which was published in 1960, and it became the only Latin book to ever appear in the New York Times bestselling list. Crazy, crazy. Okay, now let's talk about A.A. Milne himself. He was a successful playwright and mystery author first. I feel like this is a common thread. Playwriting really is opening doors for people. So before Winnie the Pooh in 1926, Milne was already an established and successful writer, primarily known for his plays, humorous essays, and novels, including the popular murder mystery, The Red House Mystery, which was in 1922. He published 18 plays before writing a single Pooh story. Wow. I do find this heartening. The fact that it can take you a while to get where you're going, especially as a writer. He was an early screenwriter too. He wrote 4 short films in 1920 for Minerva Films, an early British film company founded by actor Leslie Howard. Also, he was part of a celebrity cricket team, very, very British. Milne was considered a talented cricket fielder and played for a prominent amateur team called the Authors 11. His teammates included literary figures like J.M. Barrie, the creator of Peter Pan, one of my favorites, and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the creator of Sherlock Holmes. Wow. He was also a World War I propagandist against his will. After fighting in World War I and being invaded, his writing talent led to his recruitment into a secret propaganda unit. Despite being a lifelong pacifist, he was ordered to write articles to bolster support for the war. That sucks. Can you imagine being forced to use your talent for something you didn't believe in? And then finally, he wrote a play that perfectly foreshadowed his son's resentment. Before his son, Christopher Robin, was ever born, Milne wrote a play called The Great Brocksop about the resentment a child felt towards his father for using his name and image in popular advertisement, a theme that tragically mirrored his son's own feelings later in life. Oh, I didn't know that. That's a sad one to go out on. Anyway, again, our quote of the day is, Piglet noticed that even though he had a very small heart, it could hold a rather large amount of gratitude. And that applies to our Thanksgiving theme of the month. So the first external source I want to talk about is a book I just finished, another Sally Rooney book. I know I'm continuing on the trend from last week. I was at the beach. I read Conversations with Friends, which is, I believe, the first Sally Rooney novel. And the quote that aligns with our quote of the day is, "It's possible to feel so grateful that you can't get to sleep at night." And I think that aligned with our quote of just the idea of being so grateful it feels so big and huge. And Conversations with Friends is about these 2 best friends who perform spoken word poetry together. And one of them is a writer, one of them is a really good performer, and they're obsessed with this photographer essayist named Melissa, and they end up becoming friends with her and her husband and her whole friend group, and then some crazy things happen. And I think that this quote today, "It's possible to feel so grateful that you can't get to sleep at night," talks about the idea that gratitude can be so big you don't know what to do with it. And I think that aligns with our little Piglet quote of knowing that a lot of gratitude can fit in a little heart. I really liked the idea of this novel talking about conversations with friends, because your conversations with your friends can determine the course of your life, right? If I call up my friend and I'm like, should I give this guy another chance? And she says, absolutely not. I'm probably not going to go on another date with him. Or other side of the spectrum, I call her up and I'm like, should I give this guy a second chance? She's like, oh my gosh, Caroline, yeah, you're probably going to marry him. I probably will think I'm going to marry him. Conversations with your friends can be so gearing, and it's really interesting to know what you guys talk about again and again and again and again and again, like beating a dead horse. It's also interesting to know what you don't talk to your friends about. And I think the narrator of this novel, Frances, is quite the person to get to know, because we hear a lot of her rationale and why she tells people things or she doesn't tell people things. And that's interesting. It is, because I do it. There are things that I know if I told my friends, I'd get a whooping. I know I'd get a whooping. For example, a bunch of my friends came to town for my birthday in October, and we were all hanging out super late, my college friend group. And I was talking about how hypothetically, this isn't really happening or anything. This is just like it might happen. There's this big conference in a faraway state. And I was talking about how if I went, there's this person I don't talk to anymore. And I was like, what if I just got dinner with them? And my two college friends were yelling at me, being like, Caroline, you absolutely are not going to do that. You're going to get in so much trouble. I'm going to text your mom. And they would not let me do that. And we were talking hypotheticals. Hey, don't kill me here. We were talking hypotheticals. I wasn't really going to do it, probably. But I mean, after that conversation, I absolutely won't. Your friends can guide your life. Of course, this novel does have some romance. There is a little bit of a sauciness element. Don't say I didn't warn you if you are going to read it. But I like the talking about the friends and how important they are in your decision making in your life, because I think, and I say this all the time, that friends don't get enough credit. I think modern media gives all of these accolades to romantic love, right? We have the rom-com, we have love songs, we have a whole holiday where you go to CVS and you buy cheap chocolate and fake flowers and you celebrate romance. And that's lovely. I love love. Don't even tell me I'm being a fake romantic. I'm a full romantic here. I'll say that with my chest. However, I do think friends get the short end of the stick. And I try to reiterate to all of my friends and my family and everyone I know the importance of your friends, because you need those relationships. It's not just the romantic relationships that will sustain you. It's also your friend ones. Because of course you're going to go to your boyfriend, your girlfriend for daily talking about life and how you're feeling about things, but you need your friends to talk to about how you feel about your relationship, and your relationship talk about how you feel about your friends. You need all these people in your life for different aspects. And in general, the more people you know, the more tools you have to do life better, the community, the village you have, so to speak. But anyway, that's my rant there. Some quotes for you from conversations with friends, in case you're trying to figure out if you want to read it. You underestimate your own power, so you don't have to blame yourself for treating others badly. Oh. Next up, the bond of all companionship, whether in marriage or friendship, is conversation. And that could be the titular quote, one might say. And I do agree with that. There's this TikTok trend going on, I don't know if you've seen it, where you ask your lover, sorry for using that word, about seeing a bird today. You just say, oh, I saw a bird today. And you see how they react. And apparently, if they're really in love with you, they're like, oh my goodness, that's so sweet. What color was the bird? What did it do? And they ask you all these questions and they're really interested. And apparently, if they're not in love with you, they're like, why do you need to tell me that? That's dumb. Because the idea behind it is that someone who's in love with you, someone truly in companionship with you, will care about everything you have to say, which I think is sweet. I do think that's nice. And I do think that's one of the hard things if you do go through a breakup. And I'm talking about romantic breakups or friend breakups here. I'm going to be honest with you. It's really hard to go from talking to someone every single day on the phone, over text, however you communicate, seeing them in person, and then all of a sudden they're just gone. That's really hard. It's really hard. Okay, next up, I realized my life would be full of mundane physical suffering and that there was nothing special about it. Suffering wouldn't make me special, and pretending not to suffer wouldn't make me special. Nothing would. Ugh, sad. Okay, continuing on. I think I only appear smart by staying quiet as often as possible. That is one tactic. That's one way to do that. Okay, 2 more quotes for you. Gradually, the waiting began to feel less like waiting and more like this was simply what life was. The distracting tasks undertaken while the thing you were waiting for continues not to happen. Yeah, that is true. When you're little, it's really easy to know what the rest of your life is going to look like to a certain extent. Like when I was 7, I knew that when I turned 8, I'd go to 2nd grade. And in 2nd grade, we were studying rocks. And I was particularly thrilled about geology because I loved rocks. And so the idea of getting a rock from the playground and tumbling it and seeing what it turned into was dreadfully exciting to me. And I was thrilled because that was going to be the next year of my life, was tumbling rocks. Oh my goodness, that was amazing to know. Or when I was 9, turning 10, I knew the next year I was going to be in 4th grade and we were going to have Colonial Day. And so we were going to learn about Jamestown, and then we were going to go to Jamestown, and then we were going to do all the dances and dress up in the costumes and have a Colonial Day ourselves. You know exactly what's coming. I knew that as I got older, I knew when I would get my license. I knew, oh my goodness, all my friends and I are going to go to this big dance this weekend. Oh my goodness, I'm going to go off to college then. You know all these big things that are going to happen to you. And then all of a sudden you're an adult. And if you would have asked me at 7, like, what's life going to be like at 25 or 26? I wouldn't have had any clue. And now I realize that life isn't the next big job I'm going to get. It's not the next big apartment I move into. My life is the little things I do every single day. Like this weekend, my plane ended up getting in early and I was able to go out with my friends on Saturday night. And that's my life. And that's really cool. The fact that I live near so many of my friends that I could just text a group chat and be like, hey, who wants to go out tonight? And then we all go out dancing at a little beer garden. That's fun. That's really fun. And I feel lucky to have that little life. And my life is the little cup of tea I make myself every morning, my workout I do before I go to work. That's my life. And it's funny because when you're little, it's always the big things. It's turning 12 and 16 and being able to drive and having your first kiss. You feel like that's life. And then you get older and you realize it's all the little stuff in between that. You know, there's that quote that's like, life is what happens while you're waiting for life to happen. I might be misquoting that, but you know, I got a lot of words going on up here. Okay, one more quote for you from Conversations with Friends, and that is, everyone's always going through something, aren't they? That's life, basically. It's just more and more things to go through. Yeah. That is a little bit true, I have to tell you, because I do feel as though a lot of my friends have been, I hate the verb adulting. I'm going to tell you right now. I feel like it should be on an outdated meme or something, so I'm not going to use it. But I do feel as though a lot of my peers have been having to endure more mature life experiences recently. There have been a few deaths of parents, which, how do you even go through that ever in your life? Not just when you're my age, but anytime. There have been some breakups of people who thought they were going to get married. There have been some losses of jobs. However, I mean, that's very negative. I don't mean to dampen the mood, but there's also been some really wonderful things. Like one of my dearest friends just got engaged. Another one of my dear friends is getting married in October. There's some really wonderful big things that we're going to have to endure too. But that is just becoming an adult. It's realizing that, oh, this isn't just something that someone else has to deal with. This is my life now. And it's learning how to withstand all those big, crazy things that do happen to you. Okay, well, that's Conversations with Friends. Worth a little read. I mean, I finished it in 4 days. Definitely worth it. Okay, next up, we're going to talk about a song. And we are going to be talking about Silver Lining by First Aid Kit. You ought to listen. If you're listening to this on Spotify, it'll be linked in the podcast notes. But I'll read you some quotes. The chorus goes, show me my silver lining. I try to keep on keeping on. Show me my silver lining. I try to keep on keeping on. This is a verse. I don't want to wait anymore. I'm tired of looking for answers. Take me someplace where there's music and there's laughter. I don't know if I'm scared of dying, but I'm scared of living too fast, too slow, regret, remorse. Hold on. Oh no, I've got to go. I think that aligns with exactly what we were just talking about, learning to withstand your life. I think it also aligns with our concept of filling things. If this is my life, this little orb that I can hold in my hands, I get to choose what goes in it. I get to choose what it looks like. I get to choose what I fill it with. And so, like the singer is saying, do I want to fill it with music and laughter? I get to choose what goes in. And I think it's the same thing with Piglet talking about, even though I have a small heart, I'm surprised how much gratitude can fit in it. Even though you have this small life in the scheme of things, it's very short. Even though when you're young, it feels like it's going to be long. You get to choose what you do with it and what you fill it with. You get to choose if there's daily gratitude. You get to choose if there's a lot of sadness. Of course, things are going to happen out of your control, but then it is your life. You get to do what you want with it. And so I thought that aligned with what we were talking about today. I think it's worth a listen. It's a beautiful song. I'm not going to try and sing it for you because you would hate me. Okay, and our last external source is the movie Companion. And I really strongly recommend this movie. I'm going to tell you right now, my description of it is going to sound bad, but that is because there are a lot of twists and turns in this movie, and I cannot say more without telling you something. So do not look up reviews. Don't Google anything. Just watch it. You could watch the trailer, but I'd even prefer you just turn it on and see what it's like. The one thing you know when you start the movie is this quote. There were 2 times I truly felt happy. First, the day I met Josh. Second, the day I killed him. Fun, right? It's a good old watch. I like the girl in it. The quote that I thought aligned with us from today is this one. Most of the time, it's like, I don't know. It's like there's this thick black cloud covering everything. Like we see the world, but we don't really see the world, you know? We're all just stumbling around directionless, no sense of meaning, no sense of purpose. But it makes us appreciate the other times, those brief, transcendent moments when the lights flicker on, the black cloud parts, and you can see the world for what it really is. You can call me out on it. This quote is a bit of a stretch in how it aligns. I saw the word appreciate, and I was like, that aligns with gratitude and how we feel things. This movie's not really about gratitude or how you fill your heart or anything like that, but I do think you ought to watch it. There's a little bit of gratitude in it for being able to be autonomous and in control of your life and that sort of thing. But truly, I just think you ought to watch it. I think this would have been a spectacular Halloween costume. As I was writing this plan, I was like, oh, Halloween was 2 days ago. And I was like, I really missed out. So if you dressed up as Companion for Halloween, I'd love to see it. I also think this is a good movie to rewatch. And I don't say that a lot. I typically am not a rewatcher, but I watched this in theaters and then I showed it to another friend. And upon the rewatch, I was like, that's foreshadowing. Oh, I get it now. And it was kind of fun to rewatch. So this could become a staple movie in your house. You never know. You never know. Okay, and I wanted to end on reading you one of my poems. This poem is called Maybe Love is Like Lactose, and it is from Puking Glitter. I couldn't tell you if it's volume 1 or volume 2. I think it's volume 1. If you don't know, Puking Glitter is my anthology of poems. I put it out a few years ago, and it's like a big old scrapbook. I manually typed every single page on a typewriter, or I handwrote every poem, and I arranged it so it feels like you're reading my diary. And I have my friends' drawings in there. I have art. It's pretty fun. It's eclectic. I'll give myself that. But this is Maybe Love is Like Lactose. Maybe I love too quickly. Maybe love is like lactose. When I was little, I loved milk. I drank it every day, every meal, every snack. At school, I unsteadily gripped my flimsy pink tray with a miniature carton of milk sitting on top, the equivalent of a 60-pound dumbbell to my pigtailed self. One day, I was told I was lactose intolerant, the equivalent of shimmel, nematotic, or raspy contagious wages to my still soft-skinned self. What does that mean? I asked. It means that all the little milk workers in your body have quit their jobs. Now, when you drink milk, there is no one there to catch it as it splatters into the container of your stomach. Maybe I love too quickly. Maybe love is like lactose. Maybe all the love workers in my body have quit their jobs. Now, when I try to love, there's no one there to catch it as it splatters into the container of my heart. I was angsty in high school, wasn't I? Well, let me tell you something. I used to tell everybody that my favorite word was unrequited. I thought that was the most beautiful, 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 beautiful word. I knew every song about unrequited love on RDIO. That was my streaming service before Spotify until it went out of business. My family loved it. I loved the idea of the friend zone. I thought unrequited love was such a badge of honor you could wear. The fact that you weathered the storm and you still love this person even though they didn't love you, which is absurd. Now I know it's kind of masochistic, to be honest with you. And unrequited love is still love. I'll give myself that. However, it's not the same as loving someone who loves you back. It's completely different. But I thought unrequited love was this amazing thing, this noble thing you could do. And it just hurts. It just hurts, to be honest with you. But I do like that little poem about how I have all this love that I'm pouring in my heart and who's going to organize it and tell me where it goes. And I think it applies to what we were talking about today with Piglet saying that even though he has a small heart, it can be filled with so much gratitude. And it makes me think of your heart is like a little apartment, okay? Or a little house. Let's be generous here. Let's say a little house. And you get to choose what you do with that house. You get to choose the art on the walls. You get to choose what carpet is there. You get to choose who comes over. You get to choose who you kick out. Your heart is a home, and you're the one to fill it. And you get to choose if every day is like warm meals are being cooked on the stove and there are cookies in the oven and it always smells good and everyone's always coming over. You could also choose to host a crazy party in your heart, and it's really, really fun for 3 hours, and then the place is trashed for 2 weeks because you don't clean up everything. You get to choose what you fill your heart with and who you let in and who you make leave. And I think sometimes it can be good to just look around and see what your heart looks like now. Do you actually like what's up on the walls? Do you like what you see every single day? Is it an environment that you like living in and can grow in? Do you like who's coming over? Are they being respectful of your home? Do they take their shoes off at the door? You get to choose that. And I think it's good sometimes to evaluate that and remember that you get to choose what fills your heart and fills your home every single day. But I may be wrong. My name's Caroline Mae Whitson. Thanks for listening, guys. I will talk to you soon. Okay? Bye.